Everyone tells you to perfect the mask you show to the world, but what if the face you hide from yourself is the one with all the real power? They tell you to bring your whole self to work. Be vulnerable, be transparent, be radically authentic, that your truth is your power, that merging your personal identity with your professional presence will earn you trust, respect, even influence. They praise emotional openness as courage and treat the mask as a form of moral failure. This is the gospel of the age. To lead is to bare your soul. But what they don't say, what they won't say, is what happens when that soul is judged, when it is dissected, manipulated, and used as leverage. The truth is, they want you exposed. They want you predictable. They want you vulnerable, because vulnerable people are easier to manage, easier to silence, easier to break. This is not empowerment. It is a subtle form of submission, and it stands in direct opposition to the wisdom of one of history's greatest realists, Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli, the supposed Prince of Darkness, the man invoked whenever the topic of manipulation arises. He has been slandered by history, turned into a caricature by those who feared the truths he revealed. But Machiavelli was no villain. He was a political scientist in a brutal age, a patriot exiled for telling the truth too plainly. And what was that truth? That power does not reward goodness, it rewards discipline, control, mastery of perception, that the world is ruled not by virtue, but by performance, not by honesty, but by effectiveness, and most importantly, that the sovereign individual must never confuse the face they show the world with the self they keep hidden. In his most famous work, The Prince, Machiavelli laid bare the laws of power that polite society still tries to deny. He taught that a leader must learn to act against virtue when necessary, that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both, that a ruler must appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, and religious, but be ready to do the opposite if those virtues threaten his stability. This is not hypocrisy, it is strategy. Machiavelli understood that the mask is not a lie, it is a weapon, a tool of survival. The mask is the interface between the individual and the chaotic world. It is not there to express the soul, it is there to protect it and to win. This principle applies just as much today as it did in Renaissance Florence. In modern corporate life, consider the executive who buys into the doctrine of radical authenticity. He shares his mental health struggles in team meetings. He openly admits he feels overwhelmed. He talks about his childhood trauma on a podcast to inspire others. At first, he is praised for his vulnerability. He is seen as relatable, progressive, emotionally intelligent. But over time, something shifts. Decisions are second-guessed. Board members begin to question his resilience. Rivals notice an opportunity. And when the company falters, who is the first to be blamed? The leader who exposed his wounds. The strategist, by contrast, plays a different game. She presents calm confidence. She speaks selectively, with intent. Her private life remains private. She listens more than she talks. She understands that perception is a currency more valuable than truth. And so she engineers her image the way a military general plans a campaign. Every word calibrated, every signal intentional. While others perform therapy on stage, she builds silent alliances, and when the tide turns, she remains untouched. In politics, the naive leader who confesses every moral hesitation is praised by pundits and destroyed by reality. The Machiavellian leader understands that leadership requires compartmentalization. The sovereign cannot afford to be fully seen. The mask is not deceit, it is duty. Appearances must be shaped with precision, because perception is more powerful than fact. This is not a justification for cruelty, it is an acknowledgement of how power actually works. When Machiavelli wrote of Cesare Borgia, he was not glorifying his brutality, he was studying his effectiveness. Borgia knew when to charm and when to kill. He understood that mercy at the wrong time breeds revolt, but fear, properly managed, creates order. Borgia was not a good man, but he was a prince who understood the game. He understood, as Machiavelli did, that reality bends to appearance, that the lion may be feared, but only the fox sees the traps. The world does not reward the leader who reveals his soul. It rewards the leader who can play both roles and remain the author of the script. In relationships too, the collapse of persona into raw authenticity has led to confusion, erosion of boundaries, and a loss of leverage.
We are told to be honest about our intentions, to share everything, to be transparent in love. But transparency in the early stages of power dynamics creates asymmetry. It creates an opportunity for control. The Machiavellian understands that mystery builds magnetism, that discretion generates desire, that silence can speak louder than confession. You do not need to lie, but you must not reveal everything. Your inner world is not a public resource. It is the fortress of your sovereignty. In business negotiations, those who reveal their entire position lose their leverage. They mistake being relatable for being persuasive. But the strategist reveals only what serves the mission. They use charm as a shield, not an open door. They understand that the appearance of virtue can calm resistance, even as decisive moves are made behind closed doors. They understand that to lead is to project strength, even when you are uncertain. That to rule is to manage optics as ruthlessly as outcomes. In this context, the mask is not just a metaphor, it is a commandment. You must design your mask the way an architect designs a fortress, with layers, with strategy, with redundancies. Your mask must convey strength, it must broadcast value, it must be adaptable to context, yet rooted in consistency. It must speak for you when you are silent, and it must conceal the parts of you that can be used against you. The mask is not the enemy. It is your first line of defense in a world where perception is weaponized. To remove your mask is to strip off your armor in the middle of a battlefield. To collapse your public and private selves is to become legible to all and vulnerable to any. Machiavelli was not celebrating cruelty. He was warning against naivety. He saw the wreckage of idealists who mistook sincerity for strategy, who believed that authenticity would shield them from betrayal. But the world, as he knew, does not operate by the rules we wish it followed. It operates by the rules it has always followed: self-interest, fear, ambition, appearances, power. And so, to be sovereign in such a world, you must not only understand these rules, you must master them. The mask is your starting point. Without it, you are raw, you are exposed, you are prey. With it, you become unreadable, you become flexible, you become powerful.
The Machiavellian does not reject morality, he rejects dependency on it. He does not scorn honesty, he uses it strategically. He does not hate virtue. He understands that its appearance is more effective than its substance. This is the foundation of real-world power, not idealism, not vulnerability, but the deliberate control of how you are seen. That is the game, and Machiavelli was the first to write the rules. Now you must decide whether to read them or be ruled by someone who has. But there is danger in only wearing the mask. For if you project strength while hiding weakness, yet never confront that weakness, it festers, it leaks, and eventually it overtakes you from within. This is where Machiavelli's wisdom ends and Jung's begins. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, did not speak of courts and kingdoms, but of minds and myths. He gave us not the tools for navigating power, but the map for navigating the self. Jung's doctrine centered on a concept just as strategic, just as vital as the mask: the shadow. The shadow is everything within you that you hide, repress, and deny. Not just the shameful, not just the painful, but the powerful, the animalistic drive, the ruthless ambition, the raw aggression, the hunger for dominance. These are not flaws. These are energies.
and if you do not consciously integrate them, they will unconsciously rule you. Jung warned that what remains unconscious is acted out blindly. The man who denies his jealousy becomes passive-aggressive. The woman who suppresses her ambition becomes resentful. The leader who pretends he has no rage becomes erratic, unstable. The shadow always returns, and when it does, it comes not as a whisper, but as an explosion. The sovereign mind does not exile the shadow. It absorbs it. It studies it. It learns its contours and codes. It converts it from a saboteur into a weapon. And the key is this: the shadow is not to be broadcast. It is not meant for confession or catharsis. It is not to be posted or paraded. It is to be mastered in private and deployed with precision. The entrepreneur who understands their drive for domination will not be blindsided by their own ego. The executive who acknowledges their need for control can build structures to wield it effectively rather than destructively. In modern dating, the person who knows their shadow won't seek validation from every interaction. They understand what part of them craves attention, and they keep that part on a leash.
They choose where and when to express desire and when to retreat into restraint. In corporate life, the shadow might include the urge to destroy rivals, to humiliate the weak, to take shortcuts. To deny these impulses is naive, but to feed them without control is suicide. The strategist recognizes them, names them, and channels them. The hunger to destroy becomes a hunger to outperform. The urge to dominate becomes the discipline to outmaneuver. The sovereign sees his shadow not as shame, but as fuel. The fox within him does not act on impulse. It acts when the trap is laid and the outcome is assured. In every field of human interaction, from politics to intimacy to commerce, the most dangerous individual is not the one who hides his darkness, nor the one who flaunts it. It is the one who owns it, silently, completely. The sovereign knows that the mask is how he engages the world, but the shadow is why he wins. Together they form a closed system, a fortress of perception and a furnace of drive. The mask without the shadow is hollow. The shadow without the mask is chaos. But the two in harmony, that is the architecture of power. That is the foundation of self-mastery. That is the sovereign mind. You have learned to craft the mask and confront the shadow. This is the alchemy of power. To continue this journey of self-mastery, subscribe. To take the next step on the path, watch the video on your screen.